Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 20.
Two, I think.
Is it 23, 24? Okay, it's episode 20 something. You'll see it in the title. You'll know what it is. I am Mulder, otherwise known as Fae. Very early Saturday morning today.
So far, so good.
That's awesome. All right, Joe. So as you know, whenever we have a guest on the show, we like to start them off with the simple question of how did you get into Godzilla? I've heard your story before because you've told it to Kaiju Apostle, and it's really interesting. So go ahead.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that I
Hmm.
make sure I keep my story consistent. So how it really started was I saw in elementary school, like one of the days we were allowed to bring our toys from home. He brought in a bunch of his Godzilla action figures, like the American Bandai stuff.
Hmm.
I remember vividly. And then I got really interested. And then one day on the Sci-Fi Channel, it was airing Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2.
Yeah.
Specifically the
Yeah.
third act is what I caught.
Hmm.
Very remember Godzilla kicking the shit out of Super Mechagodzilla and then walking home to Junior. I thought it was
Hmm.
really cool looking.
Yeah.
And then I moved on to just renting a bunch of movies from like my local library, and then I started buying my own movies and building up my gigantic collection.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, Joe. You show me your collection. You have so many variants of the Godzilla movies. Like it's not even just like one per entry. You have so many at
Hmm
this point. My collection of Godzilla stuff is also similar, but not as extensive as yours, honestly.
Yeah, I've got a nice Godzilla collection of my own too. I have this little generic dinosaur figure I call it Godzilla. I kind of want to get one now, honestly.
Yeah, though here though with me and Joe, though Joe, you collect the SHMAs too, right?
Not nearly to the extent of my brother. My brother is like the real
My brother has twice my collection, actually.
no more than 10 times, I would say. He
Oh my gosh.
action figures in general, he's on top of.
Yeah.
Damn.
See, for me, it's kind of funny to me, Joe, because I collect both like the home videos and the
Oh
action
yeah.
figures. That's really mainly what I like to collect. I know, Crash. Do you collect home video stuff as much as I do, or not
Probably
really?
like VHS stuff.
No, just like in general, like
Oh,
Blu-rays,
yeah,
DVDs.
I buy Blu-rays of like new movies and stuff that come up, but I'm not
Okay,
like I don't buy like a lot. But if
okay,
it's something I'm
because I buy a lot, like I'm running out of room level. But yeah, I feel you. Your collection's really cool though, Joe, because like I said, you have so many variants of these films on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray. It's really cool. I know you have the Japanese variants of some of these movies too, like
Ooh.
Blu-ray wise.
Yeah, largely the Heisei era because I believe those have better audio for some reason.
Yeah, Sony's transfers are not the best. Like even when we've been watching them, we've been watching them with fan subs because
Officially.
yeah, because Sony because Sony subs are not the best for these films, honestly. And that was when they finally added subs because for a while you could only get the Heisei era films dubbed, and you still only and so mainly I don't do the Blu-rays have the subversions? I can't remember now because I don't own the Heisei Blu-rays because they're not that great in terms of quality from what I've heard.
The Heisei films only have subtitles for like okay, they're sort of like a mix of the actual Japanese dialogue and then dubs for when the lines aren't so different, but it is largely just like the dubbed script.
That's really weird.
Mhm.
Oh, Sony. I'm hoping that we'll get like a Heisei era box set one of these days, like we did for the show era. Like
I'll
I could see Arrow do that one of these days, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Or even
just
carry on. But go on, sorry.
oh yeah, just for the sake of having like a new affordable means of getting Biolante.
Yes, Violante has been out of print for years now. And oh my gosh, those Blu-rays go for a lot. And the Blu-ray, at least the one which I have is not that great subtitle wise either. So
Isn't it like the 66th anniversary or something? That's kind of a dank number. I was gonna say maybe they'll do like an anniversary release or something.
yeah,
But I don't think anybody really celebrates their 66th anniversary. It's always
yeah,
like,
because the Showa box set last year was for the 65th anniversary, which made sense.
yeah, it's always in fives. No one gives a
Yeah,
shit about your lines of shoes.
yeah, it's always like you said, it's either 5 or 0. All right, so now that we had our ramble first thing in the episode, um, I guess we'll get into the movie we're discussing today, which is the final movie of the Heisei era, Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, otherwise known in some places as Godzilla vs. Destroyer, but I prefer Godzilla vs. Destroyer. I think it just sounds better, and like you pointed out last time, Crash, it fits Destroyer more as a monster.
Yeah, I explained why. Did I say it in the
Yeah,
video?
you did.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
think you
wait.
did.
Pretty sure I did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Okay.
like, yeah.
Okay, so here's
But Joe hasn't heard it, so you can explain it for him.
Oh, well, I was just thinking like in terms of Spanish, like they have like male and like feminine like endings, like
Mhm,
like Latina for like a female, Latino for a boy. So I was thinking, Destroya,
mhm,
it's like a girl monster. So like I think that fits and makes
yeah.
sense as a name.
yeah. And by the way, I
Mhm,
mentioned this in one of my blog articles where I sort of cover some stuff on Destroyer. For some reason, I do not remember like the first O. For some
mhm.
reason, I thought it
Yeah.
only had
Oh,
like one O.
I've checked the spelling. They call that shit like Destoria. It's really weird. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
basically, there's like 3 different English names for Destroyer. You have the straight Romanji, which is Destoroyah. You have, which by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, Romanji is a Japanese term for when you print a Japanese word in English characters.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then you have Destroyer, which was the original translation of her name. And then you have Destroy which is closer to the Romanji, but it just drops the initial O to
Really
make
dank.
it
Oh,
flow. Yeah, because her Japanese name is Destoroyah, so I guess that's where the Destoroyah comes from. She's had a lot of really weird name stuff, more than any other monster, besides maybe Anguirus, whose original English name was Angelus.
Angelus. Well, a lot of the show monsters got weird fucking names.
Yeah, because that was before
That's the
Toho.
era of like, what if we didn't give a shit about translating stuff in
Yeah,
foreign languages?
yeah. Yeah, that was the thing with it. All right. So, Joe, do you want to give us your rating out of 10 for Destroya?
Okay, I would say for me it's 10 out of 10, but with an asterisk. Like
Mm-hmm.
on one hand, I see it as a little flawed in areas, but overall, for some reason, I can't find another Godzilla movie that I find as fulfilling to watch.
Mm-hmm.
hmm
That's fair. Crash.
I say 9 out of 10. I really like
Mm-hmm.
this one a lot. It, it's been just talked about. I just say I like it a lot. I always say this every time. I don't know why.
Crash, ready to get into it. Then it's
I
like,
know.
wait. Let me hold off for a second. For me, I'm with you too, Crash. For me, it's a solid 9 out of 10. I really like this one a lot. I think it's kind of underrated now, actually. I think a lot of people have forgotten how it's so good. Anyways, for a little bit of information, this one is directed by Takeo Okawara, who had previously directed Godzilla vs. Mothra and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. So he came back to direct this one. And it was written by Kazuki Amori, who had written and directed Biollante and King Ghidorah, so he came back to write this one.
Oh my. What a what a double whammy. Fucking
Yeah,
Biolante and Ghidorah.
yeah,
Opps ends of the spectrum.
exactly. So, what did you guys think of the direction in this one by Takeo Okawara for his second to last Godzilla film?
It was good. Fuck. um, yeah, I don't know. This one felt more. What's the
Hmm.
word? Grand? I don't know. More
Hmm.
suspenseful too. I
Yeah.
guess. I liked it a lot. So you said this is a new director or same director from before?
Uh he is the same director as I said from
Oh, I
Mothra and
think it
Mechagodzilla
was the
2.
writer. Oh, okay.
The writer was the director of
Violent.
Violent Thanking Ghidorah, and he
Uh,
also wrote those two films.
Interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd say he left his mark in this one a lot. It's really good. I like. I especially love the way he did the whole
Mhm.
aquarium scene.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a great scene.
Joe?
Yeah, I would say like the aquarium scene, the scene where that a lot of people decide as being like the aliens ripoff. I really like that.
Yeah.
And like last in a general last 40 minutes of the movie.
Mhm. For me, I'd say this is probably his best effort as director. Like, I think Mantra looks pretty decent. Godzilla 2 looks good, but I feel like this time around, this is probably like the best looking of the three films he did. Like, there's just something interesting to me about this film style and look to me. Because, like I was saying when we were watching it crash, this one to me feels a lot like a mix of the 80s and 90s era
hmm
of Godzilla films.
Yeah, that's something I want to get into, but yeah, I agree.
And I think that's a really interesting take they did on it that helps unify it. So, Crash, since you wanted to get into that, I think we can get into that now. Actually,
I was gonna say there's something I really noticed, like found interesting about the Heisei was the fact that like as it went on, it like took more and more elements from like the Showa era
hmm
and started to kind of like incorporate that whole feeling of like kind of Godzilla fighting new monsters, but with a whole new like tone and feeling of the Heisei era.
hmm
And it makes like a really nice blend of like the cool like monster fights of the show era with
hmm
that like slightly more serious, like more serious and I don't know if gritty is the word,
hmm
or modern, I guess. Like
yeah,
take the Heisei era, and so it makes it. And the thing is, they do it really naturally. I feel like it transitions well into like this that new old show style, like as the
hmm
series went on. And here, I think it really shows a lot, especially in the
yeah.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially for me with the 80s stuff, when I say that, I feel like the film just in general has a bit of a darker and more serious vibe than the past few Heisei films had, like Mantra, Mechagodzilla, T-Space Godzilla. I feel like this one has that more serious edge to it, especially in the way it's shot. It's a lot darker, not only in tone, but also I feel like in lighting too. Like it's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
harsher with the way it's lit. It reminds me a lot of how they lit Return of Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Biollante, and the stakes feel a lot more serious in this one
hmm
compared to the past two films. Like with Space Godzilla, it's like a vague idea that something's going to happen, or like in Godzilla 2, where the stakes are more like personal-ish. But in this one, it's like the world's about to fucking end if we don't solve this.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting because it reminds me more of like that dark edge which you saw in Return of Godzilla or Biollante. I
hmm
feel like.
And yeah,
Joe.
that's something I loved a
Oh
lot.
wait, go first, Crash.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that's something I love. I loved a lot about it. I like Return a lot, and
hmm
it was cool to see that like Edge come back, and I felt it was fitting as a conclusion.
hmm Joe, I'm curious. Do you get that vibe from this movie too? That it feels like a mix of the 80s and 90s sub eras of the larger Heisei era as a whole.
Yeah, I would say so. Like,
hmm
when compared to like say like King Ghidorah through Space Godzilla, Destroyer did stick out to me as being particularly like evocative of like the first two Heisei films, which I thought was appropriate given how it's going to be like the end of
hmm
that point of the series.
Yeah. And that's a good lead into what else I was gonna say. I feel like this movie because last episode we praised Space Godzilla for its continuity and how much stuff it brought back. This movie has even more stuff get brought back and is even heavier on continuity, and it really helps it feeling like a conclusion. Like beyond the fact that we have returning characters like the shoot, what's his name? I'm
The guy
forgetting his
from
name from
Bio,
Biollante.
yeah,
Yeah, the GSDF main character in Violante, he's back in this one, which is really cool. Beyond that, we also have all those ties to Gojira in this one, like the fact that Emiko's back for a
yeah,
few scenes.
yeah. Like that's something that, like you're saying about this movie as a whole. It really tries to come full circle and bridge everything. Like this
hmm
movie's heavily based on Gojira a lot, and
Yeah,
like all the stuff that happened in that movie. Like some Emiko coming back with the same actor, which is really cool. Recounting
yeah,
like talking about Serizawa and stuff, and
hmm
obviously the fact that they're trying to resurrect that technology, and they're like,
hmm
it's probably not a good idea.
yeah,
And Yeah, it feels so conclusive. It's really
Yeah.
good. That's also something I want to talk about later. It's interesting.
Mhm.
But
And Joe, what did you think of all the Heisei and Gojira callbacks in this film?
Yeah. That's also something I really kind of liked about the film for a long time. I liked about how it was like really like the first film outside of maybe Raids Again to make like any explicit mention of like the first film to the extent that it does.
Yeah,
Okay, wait. There's also 84, but that's it. Yeah.
yeah, and beyond just that, also the fact that two of the main characters are the descendants of Dr. Yamane because he adopted the orphan from Gojira, which I think is really cool, and I think that's a really interesting way to be able to tie them in naturally to Gojira, especially because this movie, like you said, Crash, is so heavily like building off of it. And I think that works too, because for the time, for some context, this was Toho. So Toho was thinking they were going to be done making Godzilla movies for at least like 10 years, while they let America handle it. We know how that went, but for the time, it made sense to tie it back into Gojira to make it come full circle, and I think that really works for this film's favor.
I agree.
Yeah. The thing about this film is that
Hmm.
this was where I actually got the context that Dr. Yamane adopted Shinkichi because I had no idea why the hell he was around everybody else for the remainder of the film after they left Odo Island. I don't think they ever explicitly say why he's there, and that's something I
Yeah,
appreciate Destroyer for. It actually makes it clear what that he was actually adopted into the family.
yeah, it does. I also, like I said, what to go back to Emika specifically, I'm really glad they got her actress back for those few scenes because, like I said, unfortunately, Emika's actress passed away not too long after this movie came out. So I'm glad she at least got to come back at least once to the series, especially because I feel like she does a really good job in this movie actually. But I'll get back to that when we talk about the characters. I think a good place to start as we get into the film more is just blah, is Destoroyah as a monster because of course she's the main star of the show. So Crash, I'll talk about Destoroyah first.
Destroy is like I thought she was a scorpion when I first saw the poster, but no, she's like a mutated ancient crustacean
Yeah,
like that has the
hmm
power to morph together to make one epic crustacean. I thought
yeah,
she was really cool and very scary looking. I think inherently crab-like things are just kind of creepy because they
yeah,
look really like sharp. They're like jagged, and
yeah,
they feel like all that like this weird like armor plating,
hmm
and especially like her face and her weird alien mouth, with her
hmm
mouth in her mouth. She definitely comes off as a really weird like cursed monster in
hmm
Godzilla. So it
yeah,
fits really well for like the final monster that Godzilla fights
yeah,
because it's just kind of malicious. It just hates everything.
yeah,
Just kind of wants to destroy and
hmm
destroy it. So, yeah, I think she's a really cool monster, and obviously, like you were talking about earlier, she takes a lot of influence from Hedorah, and the way she has like multiple
hmm
forms and kind of transform at will makes
yeah,
it kind of unexpected to fight. Like, what's the word? Unpredictable to fight.
yeah,
So yeah, I thought she was really cool.
hmm
When do we find out she's a girl? By the way, because I don't think the movie makes that clear.
yeah. The movie doesn't make it clear. I was actually about to explain that. Basically, what because the fans are those kinds of fans. Um, from Soup Pictures, they based her off of a female crab, so you can see like, okay, I can't believe we're gonna be that kind of podcast. She
Wow.
has female crab genitals,
Female crab genitals. Wow, that's
and there's been stuff released from Toho that puts her with other female monsters like Biolante and Matra.
okay. That
So
makes
that
sense.
yeah, I also personally like it thematically because it contributes to her being a mirror image of Godzilla
Mhm.
in a dark way. But anyways, Joe, what do you think of Destroyer?
Oh yeah, I really like her. One of the things I like about the design and how it's very crustacean like is that I feel it's
Hmm.
kind of like evocative to like her almost being kind of like a parasite because
Yeah,
like I think she's one of the up until this point I think she's like one of the few Godzilla monsters where in the process of fighting both Junior and Godzilla, she actually tries to sap away energy from them.
yeah,
well, even though she was in a position to like kill Junior immediately and then eat it like any other predator, she's different. Where she is like a parasite, where she tries to keep the host alive as long as she can while trying to like absorb nutrients off of them,
Hmm.
which I really
Yeah,
find interesting.
yeah, she really is a really unique kaiju. For me personally, I really love Destroyer because I feel like her designs are so unique, and all of her forms feel so different from each other. And like you said, Crash, there's definitely, in my opinion, inspiration from Hedora there by how she changes form willingly and how different all of her forms are. And I really like that. But for me, what makes Destroyer so interesting is two things. One, the fact that she's basically a mirror image of Godzilla in a lot of ways. Like the fact that she comes from a super weapon that mutated a prehistoric species that was living in the ocean. And that's her. She's pretty much how Godzilla originally was, just an animal lashing out, now being like changed irrevocably in a world that it does not fit into because she's also a prehistoric animal like Godzilla was. She does not fit in this time and place. And I think that's a really nice somatic connection to have basically a mirror image of what Godzilla originally was fighting what Godzilla is now, which is where Godzilla's more heroic in this film.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
well, go on, Crash.
No, she can say I agree. It
Oh yeah.
works really well like that. Especially for
Hmm.
the final. I think this one is all about finality.
Yeah.
But yeah, it fits really well.
And my second point I was going to make is I also just like the kind of tragedy to her existence because basically, even though Serizawa killed the original Godzilla, by doing what he did, he ended up making a worse monster, which was his entire fear, if you remember from Gojira.
Yeah. Damn.
Because in Gojira, he was like, what if the Ocean Destroyer makes something even worse than Godzilla? And, oh, Destroyer is the crystallization of that fear of Serizawa.
Ugh, that's
Yeah,
sad.
and I really like that element to this film because this film's all about tragedy as well.
Yeah.
Um, go on, Joe. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's what my thoughts about Destroyer 2 is about how her existence is basically proving that Sarazawa was more right than he would ever want to know.
Yeah, she really is Sarazawa's worst nightmare come to life, and I really like that. And I guess that's gonna make me get into the themes of this movie. I feel like that this movie is the first film in the Heisei era, honestly, since like Biolante, personally, in my opinion, to really have a strong theme to it. And I think there's a few themes to this movie, but of course the biggest one being when can you use science responsibly, even if it might be horrific? And I think that's interesting in regards to nuclear power, because like this movie has them thinking about making a new oxygen destroyer to kill Godzilla because Godzilla's about to destroy everything unintentionally. And I think that's an interesting message because like you have I'm gonna grab his name. You have Ken Kichi like we need to kill Godzilla again. Like he's about to literally kill everybody. And Emiko's like, you shouldn't do that. The Auction Destroyer cannot be remade. It's too dangerous. And she gets proven right by Destroyer, who ends up being just as big of a threat as even freaking Godzilla as he's dying.
hmm At the point you're like, let's just hope they both kill each other and no one
Yeah.
survives. It's like their best case scenario.
Yeah, and I think there's also just that scene of also like that gets said at the end of the film of science becoming unpredictable almost and uncontrollable because Godzilla is basically going to be the final blow to humanity as a result of their use of nuclear weapons in this film and nuclear power.
hmm So is Godzilla being a horrible fiery abomination? Is that just because he's like dying of old age, or is that like a specific thing?
Oh yes.
Basic. Oh, go on.
Okay, so early on they bring up so basically like they bring up how on Odo Island like something went wrong with like the uranium deposits that were on. It's not Odo Island. Sorry, Birth Island. Birth
Yeah.
Island. Birth Island had like something weird going on with its uranium deposits where it was reacting with hot water. So it basically raised Godzilla's temperature beyond the point where his body can naturally regulate the nuclear fission that's going on in his body. So he's having like a meltdown analogous to how nuclear reactors in
Mhm.
real life would, which I kind of like as like a mean of death
Yeah.
because it kind of fits with how in the first 84 film, like he's supposed to be sort of like analogous to like a nuclear reactor, sort of like how Japan became over time has become reliant on nuclear power for themselves. Uh,
Mhm.
and now Godzilla's means of death and potentially killing the world is like comparing to like those type of nuclear reactor meltdowns that Japan's been facing.
Mhm.
Okay, that's interesting. I was just like,
Yeah.
damn. So like when Godzilla's just get old, they just fucking blow up. It's like
Yeah.
damn.
Yeah,
It's like
that's
before.
kind of the tragedy of it too, but that is that what happened to Godzilla could have been prevented hypothetically, but
Mm.
just it was not, especially at the point he was at when they finally figured it out. Wh- which I think is a good time to get into Godzilla's role in this movie. So I'm curious, Crash, what you thought of it.
Of Godzilla's role, I was like,
Yeah, and just burning Godzilla in general.
he's more pissed off than usual. Poor guy. He's fucking walking around. Like the movie starts off like 5 seconds and he's already destroying a building, and I'm like, damn, chill, Godzilla. But he's pissed, and because he's on fire naturally, and it won't
Yeah.
go away. So I'm like, okay, I feel you, Godzilla. But but yeah, like Godzilla in this movie is it's very sad. I mean,
Hmm.
I feel like he's just in pain
Yeah.
and just kind of like aimlessly like wandering around because like there's nothing he can really do about it. So
Hmm.
he's just like just a hurt animal, just kind of
Hmm.
lashing out. I
Yeah.
mean, even like they're even like, damn, did he kill baby Godzilla? They're
Hmm.
like he's worried about him. He's like
Hmm.
really unpredictable in this movie, and like even down to the end, there's just so much tragedy that happens to Godzilla.
Hmm.
Already tragic figure. It's so sad. I love the ending. So sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, Godzilla's role in this one is definitely what's the word? I don't know. He's always like kind of like the main-ish character, but like he feels
Yeah.
even more relevant in this one than
Yeah.
like
Same.
before. So like it works really well.
Hmm.
It's like no
Joe.
shit, Godzilla's the main character,
Oh,
but
sorry, Crash. Keep
no,
going.
I'm so it's fine. He's like even more main than you. That makes sense.
Yeah, I hear you, Joe. Before I go.
Yeah, I really like Godzilla here, and one of the things I kind of like as a contrast is that, like for example, Godzilla versus Space Godzilla, like they're supposed like the thing they're going for was uh he was supposed to be like relatively calmer, less of a nuisance than he was in previous films,
Hmm.
and how this time he's kind of back to how he was from like the original 84 film to like King Ghidorah and Mothra onward. But
Hmm.
then but the moment but the moment Junior becomes a beat on his radar, he basically ignores everything else. The nuclear reactor he was originally going to, he just ignores everything else and just makes immediate beeline towards him. And even
Yeah.
when they're in Tokyo together, like when they're talking and stuff, he doesn't really like attack anything until Destroyer shows up.
Yeah.
It shows like he really doesn't care about anything else other than Junior.
Yeah. Which I think is I like because like this entire Godzilla, like this Godzilla from G84 onwards, started wanting to find another member of his species. His downfall in return was because he saw that there was another member of his species at Mount. Also, I think the volcano he falls into at the end. And
Yeah.
then of course in Biolante, that fight's triggered because he thinks Biolante is another member of his species. So that's been an ongoing trend for this Godzilla. And when he finally has another member of his species in Junior, he finally settles down, and that's when we get like a more heroic Godzilla. So in this film, it's very tragic that he loses that, and I think that's a good way for this Godzilla to end, even if it's on a very sad note. And I think that's something which I really appreciate with this movie. I think this is the Heisei film where Godzilla feels the most like a character again since like King Ghidorah, because like in Mantra, that movie is Mantra's movie. Like,
Yeah.
and I think in Godzilla 2, while he does have a lot of character in that in Space Godzilla, he's not necessarily the main focus of those two films. I'd say. Like in Godzilla 2, I think it's focused on Baby Godzilla. And then in Space Godzilla, I feel like that movie is very human character focused, which I think is interesting.
Mhm.
But it's not like a film about Godzilla per se. This one, I feel like, is very much about Godzilla. Like the plot is about Godzilla. Like even though Destoroyah is the main antagonist, it's not as much about her as about how she affects Godzilla and what's going on with him. And I think that's really interesting. And like you were saying, Crash, this movie is just so tragic for Godzilla. He's dying a slow, painful death. Destroyer kills his kid. Then the JSDF kills her before he can kill her, and he fucking dies pissed off. Like, fuck.
He's like, and he fucking blows.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very sad ending. Although Arrows got
Mhm.
fucked up because lane buffering issues is really annoying. But yeah, it was really sad. Just in
Mhm.
general.
And I guess that's a good place to talk about the final monster in this film before we get into characters and other stuff, which is Godzilla Jr.
Godzilla 2.
What did you think of Godzilla Jr., Joe?
Okay, okay, so like my first thing with Godzilla Jr., even before seeing like this movie, was like I looked up random images on the internet. Like I think like Toad Kingdom once had like a Godzilla like monster bio, and I see one for Godzilla Jr. and I'm just looking at the design and I'm like, God, this looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I just like about how it very look like an intermediate like a maturity stage for like Godzilla. It looks so interesting, and when I finally saw that movie,
Mm-hmm.
I just thought he looked very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And
Junior. Oh, go on. Sorry.
oh yeah, and I just really like his struggle. Like he's literally just doing like what salmon do and just heading back to his birthplace when he has nowhere else to go. And
Mm-hmm.
and and Miki, she didn't want to like mess with that, even if the world's gonna die. He was just minding his own business, just trying to go home, and he's being dragged into all this.
Yeah. He really deserved better. Junior did nothing wrong. And I do like that element too, like you're saying, of how Mickey doesn't want to do that to him, because he really is innocent in this, but he's just forced into it practically. Like, and then not practically, he really is forced into it because they use psychic powers to manipulate him to go to the island, not the island, to go to Tokyo to fight Destroyer, and it's like, oof. And like just his role in this movie is so tragic too. But go on, Crash, and then I'll continue my thoughts.
Mhm. Yeah, like one thing that's really been cool seeing this like the past two movies is it's like the mini trilogy, but good. It's it's getting to see little Godzilla. Oh,
Hmm.
first it's like the baby Godzilla, then it's like
Yeah.
Godzilla, then it's Godzilla Junior. It's cool seeing him grow up and like become another
Hmm.
Godzilla because we see him,
Yeah.
he's tiny, he's about as big as a human. The
Yeah.
next one, he's like way bigger, minion sized, and then
Yeah.
the next one we see he's like teenager, adult, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like
Teenage.
yeah, and he's like giant, not as big as Godzilla. It's really cute. He's still a little tiny,
Hmm.
but like it's cool seeing him finally, having like grown up and become, the giant Godzilla like type that we know.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's really sad because he's just doing his own thing, and he gets dragged into this and gets fucking killed by Destroyer.
Yeah.
And yeah, that really hit me. Like if Minya got hit by a car, I probably wouldn't care as much. But, but here, like Godzilla Jr. dying, I was like, oh my god, they really killed him. And it was really
Yeah.
sad because we got to see him grow up these last few films, and
Hmm.
he was so cute. He's just like he's like I
Hmm.
don't know, he's just really lovable. I
Yeah.
love Godzilla, and so that left a big impact. I was like, oh my god, they killed him, and that's part of like the cruelty of Destroyer.
Yeah.
He's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, but when she did that, I was like, damn, fuck Destroyer. All my homies hate Destroyer. and but yeah, I think like we probably wouldn't care as much if we didn't get to
Mm.
see like little Godzilla's growth throughout the last few ones.
Yeah.
Like you said, in
That.
space in Mechagodzilla 2,
Hmm.
Godzilla has like a really big part of it and plays a big part of that movie and the connection to Godzilla, and
Hmm.
we get to see how much Godzilla cares about him. And so when he dies, Godzilla's
Hmm.
pissed, and we really get to see that, understand it.
Yeah.
So I thought he was really good in this one.
And like to continue on that, I also like how it's not like Godzilla Jr. shows up and then he gets killed instantly. Like they really make sure to establish how he is now and how he still has that kind and gentle nature still, even though he's now like almost like an adult Godzilla. And
Yeah,
like and like they have him fight like destroy his big crab form. and you're really rooting for him in that fight. And he's
Yeah.
really cool in it too. Like he finally has his atomic breath now, and it's really cool when he fucking blasts off one of Destroyer's big like crab legs.
I
And it's
know.
like, yeah, but then it starts going horribly wrong because Destroyer beats the fuck out of him in that fight. Like she fucking impales him with her mouth and injects him with the oxygen destroyer stuff.
I
And you
know.
see him like foaming at the mouth. It's like, ugh, and it's like really bloody too. Like the blood goes flying everywhere, which is something which I do like with this movie. I'll get back to that in a bit. So they really do get that, and like when Godzilla shows up and he's with Junior, it's such a nice scene. Like it's really cute because it's like they start communicating with each other as they do, and it's like, oh look, Godzilla found the sun again, and then Destroyer fucking shows up, knocks Godzilla on his ass, grabs Junior, and fucking drops him and then spams her auction destroyer beam on him, and it's like fuck. And then you have Godzilla reacting to his death, and they're like Godzilla's crying, and it's like, oh god.
Ugh,
Like it's the most emotional when you see this Godzilla really.
and
I know.
that's kind of like the thing that I really liked about this, about how like Destroyer and like Godzilla contrast. Because the thing is that like I point out like one of my articles covering it, uh, Destroyer's a destroyer has like sort of like children herself in a sense where she like does cloning. She's almost like a bacteria, like she clones herself and
Hmm.
then just recombine. Like it feels kind of like sterile, and we see these things like get killed in like the alien scene and like the and like when they're fighting burning Godzilla, but
Hmm.
but the rest of them pay no mind to the ones who are getting killed. Like they keep focusing on just trying to get like their food and stuff,
Yeah,
while Godzilla, the thing is like Godzilla Jr. Isn't even his biological relative. They're just
yeah,
members of the same species, and he's adopted, and that's something I
yeah,
really like because being adopted, uh, him being canonically adopted, makes sense with Godzilla as an animal, which implies that back when his species was numerous, there were probably social creatures who took care of each other, regardless of
yeah.
whether or not they're biologically related or not.
Hmm.
And in the moment Destroyer starts being a problem for like after round two, he immediately just makes a beeline towards Junior and just mourns over him like how an elephant would,
Yeah,
and it keeps staring at him until he starts having a bit of a seizure, and then Destroyer comes back.
yeah. And
I really like it.
it really is tragic. And like though they do give us a little bit of a moment because at the end of the movie Junior is revived as an adult Godzilla, which I do like semantically too, because it's basically the theme that humanity can never fully move past its sins with nuclear weapons, that there'll always be a Godzilla. And I do like that. But in a way though it almost feels a bit hollow because now Junior's the one who's alone
I know.
because his dad's dead.
Yeah, he's an orphan. I always took it less like a victory roar at the end because, and more so like he's confused on what the hell happened.
Yeah,
Like 5 minutes ago, his dad was walking towards him, and then and now he's looking at himself now, and he just finds himself like 60 meters taller, and his dad's nowhere.
yeah,
I know. It's a very sad ending. I was surprised when he
yeah,
came back. Though. It was it happened kind of quick because I was
yeah,
like absorb the nuclear radiation. You said.
yeah, yeah. He did.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. That's how he matures, like which is technically something that animals can do.
Hmm.
But like the thing is like how he matures through all this. So technically speaking, his mentally speaking, he's probably not that far removed from how he was in Godzilla versus Space Godzilla because both the Birth Island incident and absorbing Godzilla's radiation just physically matured him early.
Yeah, which it might be good for Japan, but it is interesting. And what you were saying, Joe, that does line up also with the fact that Return of Godzilla establishes that Godzilla has that social special coal they have, which comes back a lot actually in the films. It's a plot element in every single one besides for King Ghidorah and Mothra.
Yeah.
That they communicate with each other, because that's also why Space Godzilla comes. But yeah, just speaking about the fights, I think the fights in this are the best since King Ghidorah,
Yes.
because finally these fights feel like bloody and visceral. Like when Destroyer uses her horn beam on I know there's another actual term for it, but I forget what it is. Uses it on Godzilla. That move is so destructive and so bloody, where Godzilla is still scarred after
I know.
when he gets cut open from it, or like the fact that limbs get blown off. and all the blood. It's just a lot more visceral and physical than the fights from Space Godzilla, Mechagodzilla 2, and I really like that.
Yeah.
Still a little sparking, but not as bad.
Yeah, yeah.
The fights,
Oh, sorry, go on, Joe.
the fights were like a pleasant surprise because uh, there was like this point where I saw a lot of Heisei criticism about the fights, and I haven't seen Destroyer in a while. So Destroyer was kind of like a pleasant surprise where like I came out with a little bit low standards because of what I keep hearing about Heisei fights, and then when I see this fight again, I thought, hey, this fight's a little bit more involved than I thought. Wow.
Mhm. And yeah, like I do want to say my only quote unquote critique, I guess, of the story in terms of special effects wise is I feel like the settings for the fights don't feel as grand as some other ones. But I mean, to be honest, to be fair, it's not like okay, I'm just gonna say it, it's not like the show fights always had the most interesting settings or locations. Like Mechagodzilla's final fight is just done in a giant field practically. And you have even like Gigan, the locales don't change that much. So I don't think it's too bad, especially because like this was meant to be more I think it's less about the spectacle, it's more about the characters. And when I say characters, I mean like Godzilla and Godzilla Jr. Destroyer's characters. So I don't think you needed it to be like a big city spanning brawl. And I think the settings work just enough, but they are definitely smaller in scale than say like Base Godzilla's finale fight, or like even I'd say like Monster's fight. But I don't think it makes them bad though. And I think I've seen people be like, well, because the settings aren't the most exciting. So, but in my opinion, I think they work well. Anyways, Crash, go on.
About the settings?
No,
Or
no, about the fights.
oh, the fights? Oh
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. They were really good in this one.
Hmm.
Like, well, I think the setting works though. I really like the
Yeah.
nighttime atmosphere of it,
Yeah.
and it's just so intense. I don't know how to explain it. The fights in this one are really good. Obviously, like the first destroyer encounter is really intense. Remind me a
Hmm.
lot of like the Lost World Raptor scene, and like in
Hmm.
the workers area when
Yeah.
name, she's like hiding from like the one tiny destroyer.
Yeah.
Or it's really exciting. I don't know if that's considered a fight or an encounter. I don't know.
Yeah. You could throw it in there because it's an effect scene. So
Yeah,
I'll
yeah. That was like really well done. It was really intense. Every time destroyer comes out, it's exciting.
hmm
Every time, like I like even like also I like Little Godzilla's first fight too. It's like
Yeah.
real first fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot harder than it looks because he got a little body fight destroyer.
Yeah.
He pulled through, and then
Hmm.
destroyer pulled through again.
Hmm.
But the fights in this one are really good, and I think they
Yeah.
fit the kind of scale and intensity they were going for a
Yeah.
lot. Destroyer is very relentless on Godzilla.
Yeah.
He just kind of tears into him,
Hmm.
and he's just trying his best to fight back.
Yeah.
And they
Like
work because it
like
feels
with
like a
Dokkan.
struggle, this one because it's just kind of like a slap fight, and
Yeah.
kind of like a lot of like dank shower fights, and more
Mhm.
like um just more like a struggle, like a real intense fight.
Yeah. Like, I feel like in this one, he really is losing to her to a degree. Like, it really takes him a while, like, until, like, literally the end of the fight to really turn it around on her.
Mm.
And I like that a lot. Um, and I feel like also with this story, I also wanna give mention to the one particular scene I forgot to mention earlier. Her entrance, like, for her final form is such a cool entrance. Like her just coming out from the rubble where which she got thrown into from her flying form, I believe. And it's just so cool, like to see her final form in all of its glory. And she's tall as fuck too. Like
I know
she's taller than Godzilla. And so
she.
she has this really good presence. But go on.
I think yeah, she only got bigger. I mean,
Yeah,
like the first destroyers were like slightly bigger than human sized, and then they got like a little bit bigger then, and they were like as big as buildings, and then that
yeah,
was fucking massive. It just kept growing.
Yeah.
yeah. I really like it a lot. Um, what was I gonna say? And I think though also I want to lead into the characters here because I think the characters here are really interesting and really fleshed out. But here's my thing: I don't think they're as fleshed out as Space Godzilla, but I think the story they serve is more interesting than Space Godzilla's, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I see people like, oh, they don't have complete arcs though, and like I guess that's true, but on the other hand, um, here's my thing with it. Sure, the characters don't have complete arcs, but I feel like this movie's less about the human characters and more about Godzilla as a character, and I honestly don't mind that because I think what the human characters serve and the roles they're in are interesting enough as it is, without having to really fully flush them out.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree. That's sort of my stance on the characters because like Kazuki Omori, like I remember how like there's a criticism with his scripts about how he likes to throw like a bunch of characters at us and and switch between them a lot where it feels kind of busy where it doesn't feel like there's focus on a character. I actually kind of like
Mhm,
that about his plots where I kind of like the idea that they feel a little bit busy with all the characters going on.
mhm. And like I feel like the Yamanes, which is the brother and sister duo, I think they're really interesting too because of what they serve. Because I feel like Ken and then also the scientist who's working on oxygen on the oxygen destroyer, well, not technically the oxygen destroyer, on bringing back micro oxygen. They both kind of serve that idea of the themes of should science bring something back that was horrible and make it good, which, like you said, Joe, is a lot like how Japan handled nuclear energy. And I think
Hmm.
that seems really interesting. And then they find out, no, maybe something should be best left untouched. And I think that's an interesting idea, even if it is for the good of something. The fact that it can be turned or just go horribly wrong is an interesting idea to me. And Mickey in this movie is really good in this one too. Like I think this is the one where she feels the most mature. I feel like this is her at her end point as a character, even if it took until like Space Godzilla for her to
Yeah.
really come into her own. Like her being like, yeah, I'm just kind of at the end per se, and I think that's something that I find really interesting with that. Crash, what did you think of the characters in this one?
Yeah, I thought they were really good. I like their connections to like previous characters in the universe
Hmm.
as well, and also just their whole kind of like debate about Godzilla and the Oxygen Destroyer and what to do. Because yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not sure if they have like full arcs, but they serve their purpose really well in this
Hmm.
movie, and like getting information across about like Godzilla and their plans, and like it's kind of like their struggles. Like okay, like should we like worry about killing Godzilla or should we try to
Hmm.
help? And and obviously I forget his name, the guy's name, who's like
Um. Uh,
who studied Godzilla.
oh, okay.
He's the Amane
Yeah, Ken.
kid. Yeah,
Ken something. Let me grab it.
I think it's Kenichi. Is either Kenichi or Kenkichi.
Kenkichi. Kenkichi. You got it.
one of those. Yeah, his whole thing is like I've been studying Godzilla for like a long time.
Hmm.
Like we should not try to replicate the Oxygen Destroyer technology.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think I like them a lot, and obviously, Miki like comes full circle. She's been the mainstay throughout this whole series since the
Hmm.
second, which is
Yeah.
really cool. And it's nice to see her get like that conclusion with Godzilla at the end. She's like, I think she's
Hmm.
just like, I'm done, or like I'm finished now.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she's been connected with Godzilla for as long as she's had like psychic powers.
Yeah.
So when he dies, it's like that's like the end of their relationship. It's really,
Hmm.
really tragic and
Yeah.
sad.
Especially because they really had built that bond over the past two films, especially with her and Junior.
Yeah,
So it really hits when Mickey says like like my mission is done. I like that's it.
yeah.
Because especially because when you go back to Space Godzilla, where like her love interest is like, do you think of anything that's not Godzilla?
Oh yeah, I know. It's yeah, they were really. I like them in this one a lot.
Hmm. And one other thing I want to give special mention to the score in this film, which is the final score by Akira Ifukube, Godzilla wise, unfortunately, because he passed away not too long after this.
Hmm.
Uh, I think this is possibly his best score besides for the original, because oh my god, the music in this film is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know.
Like the action scenes are really good. Like I love the opening scene of the Hong Kong destruction because it really helps establish, in my opinion, that there's something really wrong with Godzilla. Like the tone of it is so different from the usual Godzilla music. and I think that works really well. It's so dramatic too. Like I love how the scene crescends when you get the title card.
I know it's really good.
And
Yeah, I
like
remember.
go on, sorry.
Oh yeah, I remember about how during my one of my last few viewings of this movie, I wasn't enjoying it as much as I used to, and then I realized I accidentally had like the audio on stereo this entire time instead of surround, and I realized, oh crap, I'm cheating myself out of enjoying this movie as much as I could have. I knew
Mhm.
something was off.
That's
I
funny.
hear you. And like also Godzilla's death scene, which is Requiem, is such a good but sad scene. Like it really
Mhm.
fits the end for Godzilla, especially after all of his growth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crash, what did you think of the music?
Oh, like I said, I love the music. I love Ikube. His music really I like a lot. And obviously, I loved hearing
Mhm.
the Godzilla theme get reprised a lot. And like you said,
Yeah.
he like slightly alters it, even just like a few keys. It gives like a whole new feeling and tone to like
Hmm.
what's going on in the scene. Like you said, making it like getting across the message that like something's not right. Godzilla's off,
Yeah.
and he also
And I oh go on, sorry.
like Destroyer.
Yeah. The Destroyer's theme is really nice too. I really like her theme in this.
Hmm. To really well-rounded score. Like I said, it comes together as like the final theme,
Hmm.
the final send off for Godzilla for what would happen next.
Yeah. Um, and before we close out, there is one more element I want to talk about, but that's behind the scenes stuff. This movie went through a lot of different ideas before they finally settled on this idea. So I'm gonna go over a few of the ideas, and Crash, I just want you to give me your reaction. I'm gonna tell you about three of them because this
Okay.
movie went through a lot. Um, the initial ideas was for this to be Godzilla versus Varan.
Oh, that's what the fucking flying one from Destroy All Monsters, right?
Yeah.
I remembered. Finally.
What would you have thought if the movie closed if this era closed on fucking Varan?
Basic. Honestly.
I'm really confused how that came about. I don't know. It's very weird. Another idea was going to be Crash, your favorite monster.
Mechagodzilla again?
No, your
Oh,
other favorite.
Bacon?
Yes. It was going to be Godzilla versus Bacon. That idea got dropped. And the final one before Destroya was Godzilla versus Ghost Godzilla.
Ghost Godzilla.
It was going to be the ghost of the Godzilla from 1954.
Oh my gosh.
And
Really?
Godzilla was gonna fight the Ghost Godzilla, and Anguirus was gonna be in it.
Huh. That would have been really interesting. I'm sorry. Yeah, Anguirus never showed up. I'm surprised.
Yeah, yeah, but they ended up going with Destroya because they felt that Destroya was more fitting thematically, and because they had already done two prior, like you said, Godzilla variants of Mechagodzilla and Space Godzilla, they felt Destroya was more fresh and original. And I honestly agree with them. I'm glad they went. I'm glad they went with what they did because I think making it more thematic than literal works better personally.
Also, Ghost Godzilla? That'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
Godzilla ever fought a ghost before?
No.
That worked
I
out well.
mean, technically Biollante in a sense, but that's it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
I,
she's possessed by Emiko
I'm
spirit.
thinking like 1954 Godzilla, but like with a blue aura around him or some shit. Like he's just an actual
There's actually mock-up images of that.
interesting. It would have been cool if they used like the original like design too from Godzilla.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think what they did worked best in the end. Because I feel that also might have been a little cheesy, although
Yeah.
the idea of it. But I think what they did here was definitely better for the end of it.
Yeah, same. I like it a lot.
Hmm.
This is a mock-up someone did of it, and I just find it really funny.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. It's just like blue. That's funny.
It is. Um,
Yeah, I wanted to also mention
okay.
like
Yeah.
this movie serves as like the conclusion. I loved it a lot. Do you
Mhm.
think it like stands well like on its own? Like if you were to just watch it by itself? Because I
I
feel like
would say no.
because I think this movie feels so connected, to the original and like the entirety of the Heisei era. I
Yeah.
think it was a great, amazing conclusion. But I was thinking, like on its own, would it like stand out as well to like someone who just watched it?
That's an interesting question. I feel like I would say no, because I feel like it's building off of not just the original Gojira, but like literally 6 prior Godzilla movies in the Heisei era. Like even how it ends in the credit sequence, where they're
Yeah,
showing Gojira and all the other Heisei
I know.
Godzilla films. I
That was
feel like, which is why I'd recommend anyone with the Heisei era to start from Return and watch all of them, because it's building off of so much, and
yeah.
like that's my thing really. Joe, I'm curious what you think of that.
Uh, I think it's fine on its own, but I feel like it is very reliant on the context of the previous films in order to actually get like the full weight of its purpose as being like a finale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't mean that like as a bad thing. I was just something I was thinking about because I love this movie a lot.
Hmm.
And it's just like, like, and that's a fine thing. I think, especially in like in this era we have of like large cinematic universes, we
Yeah.
get, like it's one of the earlier ones too. We get
Yeah.
examples of like, movies that are, conclusions, and I feel like kind of trying to be like, oh, this movie is not saying well, someone's like, well, that's kind of like the point because it serves as part of a
Yeah.
story.
Like, well, that reminded me of what people say about like Infinity War. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, the movie doesn't stand on its own, but like, does it have to? Like,
I mean, you need to understand what they're doing and what they're going for in the first place. So I feel that's important to acknowledge if you're like going to try and like critique something. Like,
and I don't think a movie has to be able to stand on its own to be good. Personally,
mhm,
like lots of TV, like movies based on TV shows, which work as like basically longer episodes. Like, say for example, Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan does not work as well if you go into it not having seen any Star Trek episodes before it,
mhm. Yeah,
and it's not a bad thing. It's just the
yeah.
nature of following up on something. Mhm. Go
I
on,
feel
Fae
that
Crash.
that's just like, yeah, no, exactly. You're right. I think that's kind of like my main overarching point. It's like
Mhm,
this movie may not stand well on its own, but that's not like a bad thing because it's serving as
mhm.
a conclusion for Godzilla's story in this area.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it off on. So, Crash, what are your closing thoughts on the film?
Which is Destroy is probably the most emotional Godzilla film since Return of Godzilla, I
Mhm.
feel. And it was
Yeah.
I really liked it a lot. It wrapped up this era really well, more than like
Mhm.
Terror Mechagodzilla. That's not because it's bad, but just because like
Mm.
Terror just kind of like ended, even though it had a cool like walk away in the sunset scene. But
Yeah.
here it feels like this is the end. Like we're passing
Yeah.
it up, and really hit me a lot. I was like, damn, it's a really good movie.
Yeah. Joe?
Uh, yeah, my favorite Godzilla film. Just most film for me to watch. Ride or Die.
Yeah, I hear you. For me, Godzilla versus Destoroyah is such a good conclusion to this era. It's
Hmm.
it's really strong. It really ties together everything that came before it, and it really works well as a thematic foil for the Gojira. Sure, the characters don't have complete arcs, but I don't think that's needed. And like, even though the settings of the fights and the miniatures aren't the most grand, I don't think it needs it because there's so much emotion to those fights. And I think really people are just overly hard on it, and not entirely sure why. And it's just like, I don't know. I think this movie does the best with Godzilla as a character of all the Godzilla films, and that's why for me, it's in my top 5 Godzilla films. It's only behind 4 Godzilla films for me, and I think just for me, that's saying something. So yeah, I love this film. This film's great. Okay, Joe, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter. I believe my handle's like CallMeJoe9.
Mhm. What are you working on, if anything, right now? I know
Oh
right
yeah.
now people are busy.
So yeah, I have a blog. Linked to my bio, I believe. It basically covers like Godzilla stuff and also like whale related stuff because I'm also an aspiring marine biologist.
Mhm. Which is very cool. Your articles are great. And I really recommend people, if you're interested in more of like understanding the science behind Godzilla and that element of it, to really read Joe's stuff. He goes really in depth, and it's really fantastic. So, Joe, I'm really glad that you came on. It was great talking about this movie with you because I know you're very passionate about the Heisei era. So, thank you for coming on. All right, everyone. This was episode 23 of the Godzilla Roundtable. I figured out. Next time, we'll be discussing Godzilla 1998.
Woo! Woo!
Oh,
Yeah! Can't wait.
Crash. Oh boy. So until next time, this has been the Godzilla Roundtable, and thank you for listening.